There are places in this world where death doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Places where the boundary between the living and the dead becomes thin, porous, negotiable. Pinewood Assisted Living in Hartville, Ohio, was one of those places. And Sarah Mitchell was about to discover that some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. If you're listening to this in the dark, you might want to turn on a light. Because what happened at Pinewood didn't stay at Pinewood. Sarah was 28 years old when her life fell apart. The marketing firm where she'd worked for 6 years announced layoffs in March. By August, she was sleeping on her cousin's couch, scrolling through job listings at 3 a.m, desperate for anything. That's when she found the ad for Pinewood Assisted Living. Night shift caregiver. No experience necessary. Room and board included. Those 4 words changed everything. Pinewood sat at the end of a long gravel road, surrounded by endless Ohio cornfields. The building was a converted Victorian mansion, its white paint peeling, its windows reflecting the sunset like dark, watchful eyes. Victor Ashworth met her at the door. He was perhaps 70, with silver hair and pale blue eyes that seemed to look through her rather than at her. When he shook her hand, his fingers were ice cold. "Welcome to Pinewood, Miss Mitchell," he said with a too-perfect smile. "I trust you'll be very happy here." The facility housed 23 residents, mostly in their 80s and 90s. Sarah would work the night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., checking on residents and responding to emergencies. Then Victor stopped in front of a door at the end of the second-floor hallway. Unlike the others, this door was almost black, with a heavy deadbolt lock. "Room 112, Victor said, his voice suddenly hard. "Our storage room." He turned to face her, and Sarah saw something in his pale eyes that looked almost like fear. "There is one rule at Pinewood, Miss Mitchell. You must never enter room 112 between 3 and 4 a.m. Never. Do you understand?" Something in his expression stopped her from asking why. "I understand," she said. Victor's smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. The first 2 weeks passed without incident. Sarah learned the residents' names, their stories, their small preferences. Then she met Harold Chen. Harold was 91, wheelchair-bound, but sharper than anyone else in the building. He'd been a folklore professor at Ohio State, specializing in death rituals and resurrection myths. One night, he grabbed Sarah's arm with surprising strength. "They come back wrong," he whispered. "The ones who die during the quiet hours. Between 3 and 4. They come back, but something else is wearing their skin." Sarah forced a smile. "Harold, I think you're watching too many movies." Harold didn't smile back. "Mrs. Patterson. Room 107. She died 6 weeks ago at 3:15 a.m. I saw her 3 nights later, walking down the hallway. Her eyes were sewn shut." He leaned closer. "Room 112. That's where Ashworth takes them. If you value your soul, leave this place and never look back." Sarah didn't leave. She told herself Harold was confused. Then Dorothy Winters died. Sarah found her at 3:22 a.m. during her regular rounds. Dorothy was 87, a former schoolteacher who'd been battling cancer. Sarah checked for a pulse, found none, and felt tears prick her eyes. The next morning, she watched 2 men carry a body bag toward room 112. Victor unlocked the heavy deadbolt. The men disappeared inside. The body bag never came back out. 3 nights later, Sarah was making her rounds at 2:45 a.m. when she heard something that made her blood freeze. Humming. A tune she didn't recognize, discordant, like a music box with broken gears. It was coming from room 107, Mrs. Patterson's old room, empty since her death. The door was open. Sarah's hand trembled as she reached for the light switch. The humming stopped. In the silence, she heard a wet, shuffling sound. She flipped the switch. There, standing in the corner, was Dorothy Winters. But it wasn't Dorothy. Dorothy's eyes had been sewn shut with thick black thread. Her skin was grayish, like meat left too long in the refrigerator. She wore the same stained nightgown she'd died in. Her head turned toward Sarah, slowly, mechanically, and she smiled. Sarah ran. She didn't stop until she reached the parking lot, gasping and trembling. She should have left. But a thought stopped her cold. Her grandmother had died at Pinewood 8 years ago. What time had she died? What had happened to her body? The answers were in room 112. At 4:15 a.m., after the quiet hours had passed, Sarah used the master key on the black door. The deadbolt turned with a heavy click. The smell hit her first, formaldehyde and decay, mixed with something like incense. The room stretched back into darkness. She found a light switch and flipped it on. Then she screamed. Bodies hung from the ceiling on meat hooks. A dozen of them. Their eyes had been replaced with glass orbs. Their mouths were sewn shut. Strange symbols were carved into their flesh, symbols that seemed to writhe when she looked at them. In the center stood an altar covered with candles and photographs. Behind it, a massive portrait of a woman in Victorian dress, with cold, beautiful eyes. A brass plaque read, Mother Ashworth. She was the first. Sarah spun around. Victor Ashworth stood in the doorway. My grandmother, he continued calmly. She discovered the ritual in 1892. A way to bring back those we've lost. All it requires is the quiet hour, when the veil between worlds is thinnest. You're insane, Sarah whispered. I've reunited 72 families with their loved ones. People willing to pay any price for more time. His smile widened. Your grandmother was one of them. Sarah's knees buckled. Eleanor Mitchell. November 15th, 8 years ago. 3:33 a.m. Victor stepped closer. Your mother paid handsomely to have her returned. Didn't you wonder why the funeral was closed casket? Where is she? Sarah demanded. Victor's eyes flickered toward the shadows. And from the darkness came a wet, shuffling footstep. A figure emerged. It had been Eleanor Mitchell once. It had her silver hair. But its eyes were glass. Its mouth was sewn shut. Its grey skin stretched over bones that bent at wrong angles. It walked toward her. Sarah didn't remember grabbing the gasoline from the maintenance shed. Didn't remember splashing it across the floors or striking the match. The Victorian mansion went up like kindling. Flames consumed the peeling paint, shattered the dark windows. She got the residents out. All of them. Even Victor, who emerged with his suit immaculate and his pale eyes filled with something like respect. You think this ends anything? He asked over the sirens. Mother Ashworth has been running this ritual for over a century. The work will continue. Sarah stepped close to him. Then I'll keep burning them down. Every building. Every altar. Until there's nothing left. Victor smiled. I look forward to it. Sarah Mitchell disappeared that night. Some say she's still out there, tracking down facilities like Pinewood, burning them to the ground. But here's what keeps me up at night. Pinewood wasn't the only facility. There are others scattered across the country. Places where families are desperate enough to pay any price for more time with loved ones. Maybe there's one in your town. Maybe right now, during the quiet hours, someone you love is being prepared for a ritual that will bring them back wrong. The next time you visit someone in assisted living, pay attention to the doors at the end of the hallway. Listen for humming in the walls. And whatever you do, don't ask what's in room 112. If this story gave you chills, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Share it with someone who loves a good scare. And if you want more stories that drag the darkness into the light, hit that like button. Until next time, keep your lights on. Lock your doors. And don't answer if something knocks during the quiet hours.